Hi guys, I'm Mashur Haider. I'm a technical product manager at Nebius Token Factory, leading post-training product. And today I'll be the host, interviewing Nikita for a few minutes. Thank you. So you said after single store, you were kind of done with databases, but it seems like databases weren't done with you. So then you were involved with Neon and now with Databricks. So you've been at the frontier of building data infrastructure for quite a while. How is it like different now than what it was like when back in the day?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that databases have very long arcs, right? When you build when you build a new database or a new way of doing things, just imagine Databricks, Snowflake, ClickHouse. Single Store has lots of those technologies. When you set out on a journey of building a new piece, that's like a 5-year timeline. I think that's what changed. Basically, what my point is that infrastructure projects are very long arcs, and you better really know what you're doing, because otherwise, within those 5 years, the world changes, and then you're suddenly building the wrong thing. So I think that changed. So now, if I were to build another ClickHouse or another Databricks or Snowflake, right? And I'm going to use database analogies because that's the stuff that I understand really well. There's this piece called query processor, right? You send a SQL command, it goes and over lots of data, petabytes of data, gives you the answer. So it's a known thing in the database industry that building a distributed query processor is 5 years down the drain. That's not the case anymore. Anything that can be well defined, right? So it can be well defined and well tested, so that you can build now much faster. You can probably build it in sub-year, and I'm talking about, I don't know, any query processor system, storage system. I can build enterprise storage now, something like Pure Storage, and it would, again, same story, 5 years just to get to a mature solid product. That thing is now sub-year, and the reason to this is cloud code and a well-defined spec. Things that were scary before are not as scary to build, and also things are going to get weirdly a lot more competitive because, I don't know, Databricks has this big data system, right? Well, now ClickHouse can go and build all the pieces that are missing vis-a-vis Databricks. Well, now Databricks is scared of ClickHouse. Now, but ClickHouse should be scared of Databricks. ClickHouse is a very, very fast engine, which is very low latency, and Databricks doesn't have a very fast engine. Well, guess what? Two can play this game. So I think everything will become actually a lot more competitive, which potentially will eat some margins away.
Yeah, thank you for that. To follow up from that, at Nebius we spend a lot of time thinking about how to put AI in production at scale, from post-training to inference. From your vantage point, what are the main problems that you see data and storage teams running into while they're trying to scale up AI inference or post-training?
So I know what people. So we have this AI gateway product at Databricks, and it's either running inference of open source models or custom models for that matter, which people can upload to Databricks, or it's a pass-through through Anthropic. The growth of this product is incredible. Billions in revenue and incredible growth. A lot of Anthropic demand, as you can all imagine, right? Anthropic went from 9 billion to 30 billion in revenue run rate in a few months, which has never been done in the history of tech. Now, what I'm seeing is one of the most important things that people are asking is AI governance. So, of course, people want and need AI, but we now have systems like OpenClaw, Perplexity Computer, Claude Cowork. So basically an agent that can do more than one interaction. They're a lot more autonomous in a way. So And then if you start deploying that in a large enterprise, then you need to put a harness around it and some sort of not just the productivity harness, like Cloud Code, but a governance harness. So the agents can only do whatever you allow it to do. And there are two challenges in this. The first one is like, how do you even define that? Like, what's the right way to restrict, to give permission and restrict permissions for an agent that can perform lots and lots of tasks? And when you think about read-only tasks, it's like search and retrieval and summarization, that's easy. The moment you allow people to do, writes tasks, and that becomes tricky. I think it's an unsolved problem, and obviously an opportunity for Databricks, but it's one of those things that it's up for grabs. So I think AI governance is an unsolved problem, and somebody will solve it.
Yeah, I think there's a question from the crowd on a related note. Will agents have their own digital passports in order to be used safely and officially across physical nations and countries?
I'm a tech guy, so I don't know. It's like policy. They will certainly have identities, and quote unquote service principals and permissions. But like when you think about cross countries, I don't know. I think we might like dust off some of the crypto shit, and potentially like start putting identities, agent identities of blockchain or something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. Maybe not. Yeah. But when it comes down to like cross-country stuff, like who's holding the keys? So that's always the thing. Can that be an American company? Ooh, like Europe won't like it. Well, certainly China won't like it. So that's why I went there, but I really don't know.
Well, then let's, since talking about Europe, let's bring it closer to home. A lot of this innovation is actually happening in US, but Databricks, made a significant bet in Amsterdam, which is really nice to see. Also Salesforce and Nebius, and this room is full of people building in Europe. What do you think it takes for Europe to be competitive against what US is doing to build generational companies?
Well, so I'm very startup pilled, obviously, because I built two companies. I built them in San Francisco. What's interesting is Neon was mostly built in Europe. Mm-hmm. Like it's an American company, and I was in the Silicon Valley. It started in the pandemic, and I have two co-founders. One is Russian, and one is Finnish. Right, one's from Finland, and then we built a team here. We built a team in Europe, actually mostly Western Europe. So there are some people here, there are some people all over Europe, right? It started in the pandemic, and then remote first was kind of like the only choice at the time. And then like the one restriction was time zones, and because Stas and Heikki, my co-founders, were here, like the team kind of grew here, and that was the center of excellence. Now it's changing, by the way. So we've injected, post the acquisition, we inject a lot of people from Databricks into this thing. We more than doubled the team. And then we created centers of gravity. One of them is in Amsterdam to pull people, like new incremental hires to go in there. We incented people to move down here. So I don't think Europe has a problem with talent. Mm. So I think the incredibly smart people here that can build things. They're very well educated. There are incredible schools here. For example, like the best school in databases is TUM. It is in Munich. Mm-hmm. It's like legitimately the number one school in systems and database systems. But what I think is missing is, I think the culture and then access to risk capital is less. And by living in San Francisco, everybody wants to like start a company. Like they just want to start a company, and then it's like either today or tomorrow. And some people never do, but then many people do still. And so there is like it's just like agents building apps. Like there's a lot more tries.
Right.
So it's very Darwinian, by the way, right? But it's like living that experience is it's so doable because like there's so many examples. So like if you go in a room like this and like I don't know, like there's lots of founders in the room, some succeeding, some not, and those things are like once you hit market fit, suddenly like they take off. So there's like generation after generation of entrepreneurs, and in every maybe generation or experiment, a handful of them become very, very big. And because of that, there are all these examples that are just like right here, right? Oh, these are Stripe founders. They were like us. We went to school together, and suddenly they're like, gods of entrepreneurship. They have these gigantic companies that worth 100 billion, and they're right here. They live next block, and so that volume is what leads to the creation of generational companies. So I think it's piece number one. And then when it comes down to culture, in a way I'm guilty. So the company Neon was working, and I sold it. And I sold it for like whichever reasons. There was like a big decision tree, and then we like thought about it with the board. And then we had an option of keep building. And so I think that also needs to happen more if people just like go all the way. So build, and see how big this can become. And I think the more of that is happening in the United States, where since the like Rockefeller days, it's like no, I'm just gonna go and we'll see how big this can become, and then and don't sell. And I think Israel and Europe maybe are selling a little bit too soon.
That makes quite a lot of sense because also it's great that founders like yourself who've had the experience in SF coming back to mentor the next generation of companies in EU, and hopefully we scale up startup landscape in EU in the next coming years. So I will close it off with one last question. A lot of the people here are engineers and founders. Is there any one piece of advice that you would give them about what to build and what not to build, and how to approach things in that endeavor?
There's a lot of it's hard to make a generic advice, give a generic advice. So everything usually is in the context of whatever they're trying to build. I think the important thing is that startups are built on new stuff. So whatever is new, and sometimes by spending a lot of time in the industry, like me in databases, like you suddenly see that narrow window of what is new in this new day and age, and how you can bring this. But generally, like our industry, we're blessed. We're blessed with the fact that everything is changing all the time. And occasionally, incredibly gigantic waves arrive. Internet was one. Mobile was a big wave. Cloud was a big wave in enterprise tech. And then obviously now it's AI. Startups startups are built on new. So whatever is new for you, whatever you're passionate about, try to understand what is new, and then what is like gigantically new. Like a new often means different, and that requires you to an infrastructure. It might require a new architecture, or it's just like a completely new piece of technology or product that's needed now, wasn't needed before, and therefore you're at the same starting point as whoever is your big competitor or incumbent. And they need to do it, but they have this innovator's dilemma. It's very hard for them. Yeah, they're like, it's a big company. They're aligning stakeholders and like doing meetings, and you're a team of 5 people who are incredibly fast, using all the modern tools, don't have any baggage, so you can move much faster. But as long as you're building new stuff, Because if you build old stuff, like, okay, well, try to rebuild, I don't know, like another operating system. And maybe like once in a blue moon, the opportunity arrives, that's Android, right? But it's like once in like 30 years or something like this. So if you spot that, God bless. But generally, don't try to chase somebody who has lots of momentum and you just like rebuilding old stuff, and they already have 1,000-person team and know what to do. But when it's new, the fog of war is very thick. Right. Everything's changing every day, like today in AI, and you can quickly follow what's needed, and that nimbleness allows you to, quote unquote, run away. So startups are built on new.
With that, thank you, Nikita, for your time. And
Pleasure.
Thank you.